What is up, health enthusiasts? It's Coach Lamby here for Working Weights LLC, your guide to strength, health, and all things nutrition. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Dwayne Ulrich, aka Poppy Dwirl.
Hello, guys.
Today, we are talking about the Netflix documentary, You Are What You Eat. All right, Dwayne, how we doing?
I'm doing good. Super excited to jump into this. Took a lot of notes. Got my cliff notes ready.
The notes.
Got them pumped.
Yeah. So this is our, technically this will be our second episode of the year. This will be our first episode where we're actually talking in the new year.
Yes.
Discussing it. And yeah, so anything new on the list for you this year?
On which list?
Yeah, you know, like normal resolutions, or I'm going to make this change this year.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things I was trying to do at the end of last year was incorporate more aerobic activity in my workout regimen, as well as so my wife and I, just to be honest and transparent, my wife and I just came out of about a 2-week upper respiratory so we're coming out of that and getting back to our normal selves, getting back into my workout. But I want to add some more aerobic to that. And one of the things that I'm really looking to do is I really want to get on the bicycle again. Our neighborhood has some up and downs, some up hills and so forth. Our guest, man, I'm so sorry. His name Justin.
Yeah.
Justin's story. If you guys haven't listened to that podcast, you need to go back and listen to Justin's story. Just listening to how he pushed himself and how he was just resolute about, he's going to get better. And he has, and he's done amazing. He's just, I was really super impressed with him. But I mean, his aerobic stuff just made me feel like a sad little wall plant because it's like he's doing like 30K runs in minus 20 degree Fahrenheit or more. I'm like, I'm not worthy, and he was hurting doing that. And so I'm like, I got to add some aerobic to that. Just changing some eating styles and eating things as well as trying not to eat, past 6 o'clock. That's just me. I find like I sleep better if I don't eat late, and just controlling my food, my foods a little bit better. Yep.
Very cool.
Yep.
Very cool. I have pulled the trigger on going vegan. Yeah. Okay. So I'm there now.
Okay. Well, interesting that now that you just said that, you've pulled the trigger on going vegan, and I look over and I see the battery on your camera is like,
the battery on
the
my
red.
Camera.
I thought maybe that had something to do with you being vegan. Your camera is just like, no, we're not doing it.
No energy.
Well, it's funny you say this, is that I don't mind putting this out there, and I don't think Kathy does either. My wife's name is Kathy. Is that also we call her Kat sometimes, but is that she's pulling the trigger on doing, we talk a lot about just even if you just incorporate some plant-based proteins in place of, beef, red meats, like at least 3 times a week, just 3 times a week, 2 to 3 times a week. And the improvement is so much better in your health. And so she's pulled the trigger on doing that. And I'm super excited about that. So I'm not ready to go totally vegan, but she's getting on board. I'm super happy about that.
Yeah. So it's mine is an ethical consideration, and I'm only bringing this up because my wife, who does not listen to this podcast, went on a telling spree. Like, I was just going to keep it to myself, basically. I'm not trying to become an activist or anything, but it's an ethical consideration on my part. It's not due to health. I don't think that I could make the case that a vegan diet is healthier than, the mostly pescatarian style of eating that I was doing before. I can't make that case, but there's the ethical consideration that I had. And so working on trying to put all that stuff together for a podcast, so we can, discuss all of that, and working on my epistemic framework, to make sure that what I believe is, lines out and it's not just filled with a bunch of logical fallacies.
Right.
But
I knew something was happening when you put the magazine in the receiver and you cocked the machine, and then you put your finger around the trigger. When we were talking about cattle and you know
mm,
ranchers and dairy cows and goats and chickens, and it's like something is going on here.
yeah, yeah, there's just there's a lot of questions that I don't like the answers to,
Yeah,
and so
yeah,
I came to a point where I feel that my actions are not, or were not, in line with my values.
right,
And so, I made a decision that I needed to change that. So
right, right, right.
going on that, let's get into this Netflix documentary that's all the rage on the social medias. You Are What You Eat. So this documentary follows, it's following around the researchers and some of the participants of a study done by one of my favorite nutrition researchers, Christopher Gardner. I believe it's out of Stanford. He's doing it out of
Yes,
Stanford. And they followed
yes.
around pairs of twins. And they randomly assigned these people to either a healthy vegan diet or a healthy omnivorous diet. And they measured some outcomes over 8 weeks. 8 weeks is not a lot of time. And they had 22 pairs of twins, which is 44 total people. That's not a lot of people. But anyways, they did a documentary on this. And so, given that it's the new year, people are going to be trying new diets. Perhaps this documentary or some of the things people are seeing online is swaying them one way or the other. So I thought, this might be a good time to talk about this. And honestly, I don't think I've heard like a reasonable assessment of either the study or the documentary. It's like polar opposite on both ends. Everybody is just on the extreme. So I thought maybe we can get on here, go over the stuff, and see if we can come to a reasonable assessment of this thing.
Let me
See
get
if
my
I share my
notes.
screen. Yeah.
Boom. Got my notes.
Safari channel. Okay. So here's another thing I'm doing in 2024. If anybody wants to join along with me, this is the Living Proof Challenge. And so this is being put on by a guy named Simon Hill. He wrote a book called The Proof is in the Plants. He's vegan, by the way, just so you know. But he's having this challenge. It's going to be 12 weeks long. You can go to this website. I'll put this in the show notes. You're going to download a PDF, and then the first thing you do is going to be testing these things, what he calls the 10 truths. And these are some serious tests. So I downloaded the PDF, and it's pretty serious. So you're measuring stuff like your ApoB, your VO2 max. Um, there's a bunch of stuff that you're really, really going to have to put effort into getting tested. And then you're going to calculate your longevity score. And then from February 1st to April 25th, you go through 12 weeks of making these, what he's calling scientific or science-based habit shifts. And then after 12 weeks, you'll redo those measurements, recalculate your score, and see if your longevity score went up. So it seems like a pretty good thing to do for the new year. And even though he's vegan, I don't necessarily think that all of his recommendations are going to be vegan. Okay, so just putting that out there for everybody. All right, so this is the study that the documentary is looking at, cardiometabolic effects of omnivorous, get that one out of the way, versus vegan diets on identical twins. And So this one's in JAMA. I'm really liking the way that JAMA does all of their
I like it.
study publications because you have like all the tabs over here,
I
and
like it.
man, I can just easily and very quickly get to everything that I want to see. I wish the rest of these
The
places
world.
that are, yeah, would get on board with this. All right. So it's a pretty short study. It's an easy read if anybody wants to read it. I didn't do a whole bunch of highlighting and everything on this because the documentary goes over a lot of it, and it's easy enough just to talk about in here, and most of the data is going to be in the tables anyway. So, but if people are interested, it's a very easy read, and you can do that on your own. So getting into this, so they took these 22 pairs of twins and they managed to find twins that actually live together.
Wow.
So one of the interesting things about having twins that live together is you are eliminating a lot of the genetic variation that we might find in studies, and you're eliminating a lot of the environmental differences or confounders that would be had. Okay, so very unique kind of design here. So again, they randomly assigned them either vegan or omnivorous. And then for the first 4 weeks, they sent everyone their food. So everything was pre-made food. Everybody got it, received it, and they were advised to, eat only what was sent to them. Then for the second 4 weeks, everybody had to do it on their own. So they were no longer sent food. They had to go buy their own food in the grocery store. Um, make their own, choices when going out to eat and being out at parties with friends and stuff. And so let's see about going to this is X or Twitter, and this is Christopher Gardner's page here, and he made a little post showing that the study is up in JAMA and that Netflix had released it. You could go and watch it. And we're going to look at some of the replies here. So this is some of the stuff that people are getting online. So first of all, here we have, what role do you think the fact that vegans simply ate less had on the results? It would be interesting to see the diets matched for satiety. And this is a very, very popular critique of the study, is that, well, the vegans ate less food. So we can go down here to the table, and at baseline, vegan and omnivore, their total calories for the day were pretty similar. Food delivery, so this is the first 4 weeks, the vegan diet was about 200 calories less. And then the last 4 weeks, the vegan diet was still about 200 calories less. So the vegan diet did consume less food. Now, it seems to me that the people who are making, this critique that the vegans ate less and that has an impact on the results didn't really read the text of the study, because this was an ad libitum feeding trial, meaning people could eat so Christopher Gardner likes to do real world type experiments, and was a real world study. No one was asked to control their calories. You could eat as much food as you wanted, right, to your point of satiety, to your comfort level. And that is one of the outcomes that they wanted to know, is when people do this on their own in the real world, right, not being controlled in a metabolic ward. We already have those studies, by the way, vegan versus omnivorous diets being controlled for calories. And guess what? The outcomes aren't really that much different than what we see here.
Right. That's right. That's
The
right.
difference was only about 200 calories. I mean, like, do we really think 200 calories is having that much of an impact on stuff? So anyway, so that's, an answer to that. This was not a calorie control trial. This was to look at what happens when people are eating stuff in the real world. All right. Let's see. Let me go back here. Unfortunately, the documentary just came across as Game Changers Part 3, Vegan Propaganda and Fear Mongering. Diet quality isn't tied to a named diet. It's about the nutrients the food contains. So I guess, like, I don't disagree with the second sentence there. You really do need to be concerned of the overall quality of your diet. It doesn't have to have a name. Um, did this come across as Game Changers Part 3? I don't know. So I don't think that you've watched Game Changers, Dwayne, but Game
No,
Changers was,
I've heard about it.
yeah, it's another documentary on vegan diets, and it had more to do with athletes and
Oh,
sports.
wait, I did see that.
Did you see it?
Yeah, I did see that. I can't remember the names of some of the athletes, but it
Yeah.
focused on several athletes.
Yeah, so there were some pretty popular names. There's some popular names in this documentary too. So you have Christopher Gardner, you have Michael Greger, Nimai Delgado. I mean, the list, you had Cory Booker in there and
Yeah.
what's his name? Eric Adams. Now, Cory Booker and Eric Adams, I'm not really sure why they were in the documentary because they don't, they're
Mm,
just vegan. That's the only reason why they're in there. But some names, there were big names in the field of nutrition in this documentary. And people might not know, but if I was to compare it to something, like it would be the cast of the Expendables. There's some there were some big names. You had Marion Nestle. Gosh, I can't even think of them all, but yeah, really, really big names in the world of nutrition. Uh, Specifically plant-based nutrition as well. So, there is that aspect to it. Um, yeah, so did it come across as Game Changers Part 3? Man, I don't think so. Like it was looking at the study. I think that the way the study was designed is fine. Um, the documentary did talk about animal agriculture quite a bit, so there's that part of it. I don't know if there was actual fear mongering in there. So this thing about vegan propaganda and fear mongering is kind of like, are they trying to say that this stuff didn't really happen? Because there's parts in there where they talk about uh what do they call them? CAFO, caged animal, something or other. But this is where they had, this is how our meat gets in the to the supermarket, is we have to have large amounts of animals. They're storing them in these big, barns, so to speak. And there's a lot of waste that comes off of that. And so one aspect of the documentary focused on, there's a lady who lived next to a pig farm, and for the pigs, they have these big
Hans.
ponds, yeah, where they store all of the waste runoff, and then they will use that to spray crops and everything. So there was, a a bit in there in the documentary about that. There was a chicken farmer who, after raising chickens and seeing how they live and seeing, what happens to them, decided he didn't want to do that anymore. So is it propaganda? Like, I don't know that it's propaganda or fear mongering. They definitely, it is biased towards the vegan side.
Yeah,
And we're
I
gonna,
want to throw.
go ahead.
I'm sorry. I want to throw this out there too, though, that it's a fact. There are large corporations who are generating large amounts of food products, animal food products for sale in grocery stores and grocery outlets.
Hmm.
Not every grocery outlet uses all of those same products. And the larger in fact, I have a friend of mine, I talked to him recently about this. He has uh, only way I can say it is chicken farm, not to be confused with a chicken ranch, just saying. And so he has large quantities of chickens. And so he sent me some pictures and we talked at length that some of the really large companies, the conditions of the animals are exactly what we're talking about, and um, what you would see in the documentary. However, smaller operations don't really have that. um, I don't know how to say it, but maybe inhumane way of animal agriculture. So, and that's as far as the greater experience of animal based, proteins and foods. The greater number of that is from larger corporations. And so, what was the word you used? Fear mongering.
Yeah, fear mongering.
So I don't really think it came across. I mean, it kind of came across as fear mongering, but people have to realize that large corporations are in this they're in this to make money. And so they're going to do
Hmm.
what they have to do to make the
Yeah.
most efficient use of their animals, as opposed to, say, a cattle rancher out here just in Conroe, Texas, and he's running a 100, 200 cattle, ranch,
Hmm.
and that's what he takes to market. But you may not see that in HEB or Walmart, or I'm just throwing names out there. I'm not trying to
Yeah.
incite anybody, but so that's out there. So I didn't see it. I don't think of it as fear mongering, but it is a reality. I mean, they didn't just go out and, they didn't just go out and set up a prop for the chickens and
Hmm.
the pigs and things. That stuff actually, that happens. Can't say it doesn't, but
Yeah.
so I wouldn't put fear mongering on that, but it is revelatory as to what some conditions are out there for sure.
Yeah, it does. There is more highlighting about where your food is coming from, and we've talked
Right,
about this before.
right,
People are far removed from where
right,
their food is coming from, and they don't understand.
right.
Um, you know,
No,
what
absolutely,
has to
absolutely,
happen in order for that food to get on your plate.
absolutely.
So, is it fear mongering? No, I think it did highlight it. It definitely is biased towards the vegan side. And we're definitely going to discuss, like,
But
does
there
the
is a truth
study,
there. But there is a truth there.
yeah, there's
So
truth there. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So we're gonna discuss, does the study make a good case to go vegan? And since I've recently gone vegan, I think that I have a pretty good position to speak on this, right? We have great study. Twin studies are great. Yeah, twin studies are great. Keep eating your kale, okay? I missed the part.
don't forget those ancient grains.
Yeah, I missed the part on gynecomastia. I'm not sure. There wasn't any part on gynecomastia. Let's also mention that Beyond Meat funded it. Okay, so this is another critique here, that Beyond Meat funded the study, and I just wish these who funded the study critiques would just die its last death. So we'll talk about that, but I just want to go through some of what's being said online, so what people are going to hear, so that we can address some of these things. Skeptical as to whether it offers actionable advice. I'm not part of a twin. Even if I was, how is my genetic makeup applicable with the subjects in this study? Well, no, Dulles, are you a human being?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like, I'm not sure. Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Since vegans all over are saying it's great, and they are, I have zero interest in watching a documentary full of misinformation. So this person is admitting that they haven't watched it, and is
yeah,
stating that it's full of misinformation without
yeah,
watching the documentary.
yeah.
Okay. Here we go. All right. So, this is basically it. Oh, we have funded by Beyond Meat. So we have Nina Teicholz here, and I don't know if anybody knows who Nina Teicholz is. You can look her up. But so she's saying vegan advocacy group funded this Stanford Med study and the Netflix doc. Lead study author is underwritten by Beyond Meat. Sound like advocacy masquerading as science. I find this to be a rich take coming from Nina Teicholz, who basically gets all of her money from the Beef Cattlemen's Association and the Beef Checkoff. So
Wow.
it's like pot calling the kettle here. Yeah, so that's some of this stuff. And so last but not least, we're gonna watch a YouTube video from our buddy
Oh, wait, wait.
Metabolic
So
Mike.
wait. So last but not least, so I just want everybody to know I did my homework, and there's some things about the study that, while it's a small sample size, I think there's some significant finds that we came back with. So
Ooh,
go
okay.
ahead.
Let's watch this
Go ahead.
video, and then we'll
Okay.
talk about this stuff.
Cool. Cool.
All right, so this is real short, minute and 22 seconds.
According to the media, going on a vegan diet will dramatically reduce your risk of cardiovascular disease. What was interesting about this study conducted in twins, which were randomized to either eat a vegan diet for 8 weeks or an omnivorous diet over the course of 8 weeks, is there were reductions in LDL cholesterol in the people who went on a vegan diet. But what was interesting and wasn't talked about in this study or the media coverage was changes in both triglycerides and HDL cholesterol levels in the wrong direction on the people eating the vegan diet versus the omnivorous diet. So when you just look at LDL cholesterol, it looks as though the vegan diet is in fact superior. But what was interesting about this study, which included mostly women, is we know that LDL cholesterol is not a significant risk factor indicating future cardiovascular risk development in women, more so in men. So that's important point number one. Important point number two is in the baseline characteristics of the study, we have waist circumference measurements, but we don't have that after the fact. Why didn't Stanford scientists look at changes in waist circumference after the different dietary interventions in the twins? We have some important questions to ask the principal investigator, Chris Gardner, as to why this wasn't mentioned in this analysis in the Journal of the American Medical Association. We need to have answers, better answers, I think, to these important clinical shifts when different dietary approaches are applied. We did a full deep dive on this particular paper on my YouTube channel. If you're interested, definitely check it out. I will link that below.
Okay, so that's Mike's take, and I did watch his full in-depth video on that. And so let's click over to the study here. We're going to go to these tables. We're going to look at this table that he's talking about. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So this is the chart that he's showing here. We can see LDL on the left. Vegans are the yellow squares. Omnivores are the dark blue.
Yeah.
Grayish squares. And we see LDL was lower.
Reduction of
Triglycerides
about
went
10%.
up. Yeah, and so this is change, median change from baseline here. So he's saying LDL went and triglycerides went the wrong way. Now I watched his full analysis, and he really is stuck on this waist measurement thing. He talks about it quite a bit in there. I think that that he did that video before the documentary came out. And so looking at the documentary, they did take those measurements afterward. Now, it is a good question. Why didn't they put the afterward measurements for a lot of those in? Because they did DEXA on some of the participants.
They did DEXA on everybody.
Yeah. And so they don't report that in this study output here. They don't have the DEXA results, and they don't have a lot of, from baseline to post diet results like the waist measurement. So that is a good question. I don't know that I would base my, a whole bunch of critique on, waist measurement reporting.
Agreed.
So,
Agreed.
but one of the things he mentions before he talks about the triglycerides and HDL in his full thing, which I will link to, he talks about this TMAO. Now, we've mentioned TMAO before. TMAO is a marker that is produced when you consume animal products. Christopher Gardner does seem to like looking at this. I'm less than convinced about this marker. I'm not really sure that it has a lot of relevance. It kind of just correlates with certain things, but I don't think that we see that by changing it, that affects outcomes.
Okay.
So one of the things that he says is, well, yes, TMAO went up on the omnivorous diet and it went down in the vegan diet. However, neither of these results are statistically significant. We can see that the confidence intervals both cross the 0 line here, right? And they're almost, the point estimates are almost well within the confidence intervals of each other. However, he goes on to say that triglycerides went in the wrong direction on the vegan group here. Now, if we look at the triglyceride measurements here versus the TMAO, this almost looks like a mirror image of each other, right? We see the confidence intervals down here at the bottom, down here at the bottom. We see it at the top. We see it at the top. Point estimates. It's almost a mirror image. So my question would be, well, if you're willing to accept that the TMAO measurements are non-statistically significant, and so you wouldn't put a lot of stock into that, what are we worried about with the triglycerides here then?
So can I just jump in for a second?
Yeah.
So I did some research with this, as well as my wife watched the documentary, and ran through it with a fine-tooth comb. What she was telling me, and Chris, I don't think that we don't see it here, obviously, and so I haven't seen the written results of the study.
Yeah, we'll pull them up.
But okay, but so one of the things that's talked about is like So on so the LDL cholesterol shows to have dropped 10% on average. The inflammation marker of TMAO, which is trimethylene oxide. Okay, what she said, what she found in there, I don't know if he said it or she actually saw the study, was found to be the same at the end of the study as it was for the beginning for meat eaters, while the plant-based diet subjects had lower levels of the same marker. So it made it look like the meat eaters number went up. That's what she was trying to explain to me. I don't know that. We probably should look for that. And another thing is like people are like, well, what's the big deal about TMAO? So it's an inflation marker, and TMAO it's associated with cardiovascular system, atherosclerosis, heart attacks, chronic kidney disease, diabetes, type 2 diabetes, and stuff. But so if we could find that and look at that like before and after, she felt like that the TMAO was found to be the same or really close to the same for the meat eaters. In the vegan diets, that number lowered. So can we search that out?
Yeah. So let's see. Well, they have baseline characteristics here, and I don't see TMAO on the baseline characteristic. We can go to the supplements. Now
Whoa,
that
go back, slow, go back
back
the
up.
other way, back up. Okay, it was just telling how it was measured.
Mhm.
TMAO was measured by. Okay, go ahead.
Here's
There it
the
is.
TMAO sensitivity analysis.
That's weird.
Yeah, there's tables in here. Let's see if we can find the tables. The point estimate graph that we were looking at shows a change from baseline. So to say that there was no change from baseline, that point estimate graph is actually showing the change from baseline.
Okay, but how significant is it? Did the meat eaters go up, or did it was just minor?
Yeah, well, we can look at, yes, the meat eater group went up. Okay. So in the omnivorous group, so these are the, let me see if I can get this. Well, these are the end of the 8-week results. So TMAO was 4.9 in the omnivorous group. Now, we want to be concerned with whether or not that's going to make a difference, right? It's not just that markers go up or down.
Hmm.
Are they going to make a difference? TMAO reference range. And this is people are going to find out. Here we go. Question.
4.9 to 531. Go ahead.
Let me see if it'll. Yeah, we're going accept.
Is it kind of freaky that I actually do my homework sometimes?
No, I'm glad that you do.
Thanks.
Yeah. Individuals suitable for testing. Reportable ranges is 0.27 to 267. Let's see. In patients with a moderate or high risk of CVD, cardiovascular disease, a TMAO level of less than 6.2 defines a population at lower risk for MACE relative to those with higher TMAO levels. Okay, so, the TMAO level in the omnivorous group is 4.9, which is below 6.2. So just because it went up doesn't
Doesn't
necessarily
really make a
mean that
difference.
they're in an increased risk, right? So that's
Doesn't
what I'm
make a
saying.
difference.
Like
Cool.
we see this TMAO level go up and down. We also see other levels go up and down in various studies. And I haven't seen TMAO levels change to a point where it places people in a different risk category,
Right.
right? So, did it go down on the vegan group? Yeah, I don't know if we can go back to this and see 6.2 to 9.9. So both of them are less than 6.2. So,
So it's moot. It's a moot
it's a
question. It's a
moot
moot
point.
point.
It's a moot
Yeah, yeah.
point for me. So
Yeah.
I
As long
honestly,
as they're below 6.2, they're good.
yeah. And that's with people who have a moderate to high risk of cardiovascular disease.
Right.
So, it is what it is.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
So for triglycerides, we see this change from baseline. And so this is indicating the percentage. So we see, around a 10% lowering of triglycerides in the omnivorous group and around a 10% increase. But again, like what are the actual numbers here? So in the vegan group, the triglycerides are 93.5 at the end of 8 weeks, and the omnivorous is at 98.2. For all intents and purposes, those triglyceride levels are the same,
Yes, they are.
right?
They really are.
So we see these reports of like a percent change.
Yeah.
For the
Yeah.
TMAO, like the percent change over here is almost 45% in the omnivorous group. What does that end up being? Like not that much, right? So it turns out 45% of a small number is a small number.
Well, and look at the confidence bracket up to
Yeah, the confidence
110.
interval is extremely wide up here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this
Yeah.
for the triglycerides. For it, I don't think when we look at the actual numbers here,
Yeah.
they just don't make a difference, right? And even
Yeah.
that being is that the people who are reporting triglycerides changed in the wrong direction. Well, it's still lower in the vegan group,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And something else that's we just need to throw that out there too is like the last 4 weeks of the test. I mean, these people are on their own. They weren't
Yeah.
eating prescribed foods. They had the freedom to eat whatever they want to eat. So we don't know what they did. So
Yeah. Well, in the supplementary tables, where did all that go? Oh, here it is. Okay, so in the supplementary table here, this is macronutrient and energy distribution, and this gives us the food delivery. So the first 4 weeks versus the second 4 weeks, the last 4 weeks. All right. So how much did the calories change between the first 4 weeks and the second? Not that much in
not
both
much.
groups, right? And then the same thing for protein, really didn't change a lot.
Right.
Carbohydrates didn't change a lot. Fat really didn't
Right.
change a lot. So they did a pretty good job
Yep.
of sticking to these diets. We see the distributions here. So there was a little bit of changes in some of these things, which we would expect from a vegan diet. Vegan diet's going to be lower in saturated fat than an omnivorous diet is. And, that's just one of the aspects of a vegan diet. So fat distribution, grain distribution, probably going to be a little bit higher in the vegan than the omnivores, right?
Yeah, a little bit, not much.
Not much. It's
Again,
about the
not
same.
not enough to make a massive impact.
Mhm.
But
Protein distribution, this is something people are probably going to be, concerned about. So is there a difference in protein distribution? Yeah, it turns out between the two diets, there's a difference in protein. When you go on a vegan diet, you do need to be more cautious about getting in protein. So they're basing the protein on calories here. Carbohydrate distribution, dietary cholesterol distribution. Of course, it's going to be almost zero in a vegan diet.
right, right.
B12, this is another aspect of this, is that the vegan group was, did have quite a lower amount of B12 in the diet. And we can see that in this chart here. So vitamin B12, we did
Yep.
see that it changed from baseline. In the omnivorous group, it really didn't change that much. Some people went
Right.
down, some people went up. For the most
Right.
part, didn't change. And that's the thing here, is most of these results after 8 weeks, they're just, it just didn't end up being that much of a difference.
Even that last marker, for weight, just a slight change. It's not a massive
Yeah, it was like 2 pounds,
2 pounds. Yeah.
2 pounds, 4 pounds or something for the whole
Right. Right.
whole group. Vegetable servings, we would expect that to be higher. Blah,
Yep.
blah, blah, blah. So let's get back to this. There was another, now that I'm going through it, there was another critique that people are making, which is based on the satisfaction of the diet. Okay, and so let me see. Oh, where'd it go? All right, let's find it in. Okay, diet satisfaction. All right. So in the vegan group, at baseline, people measured their baseline diet at 3.5. At week 8, it went down to 3. And this is on a score of 1 to 5. Okay. On the omnivorous group, 3.5 ended up at 3.6. So they really found no change in satisfaction. The vegan diet, they did find a small change in satisfaction. All right. So a 0.5 on a scale of 1 to 5. Where they found the most dissatisfaction was when it came to eating out and the preparation. So basically in that last 4 weeks, we saw the big change. Well, I guess there was a big change in week 4 there too, or the first 4 weeks. So, but most of it is in planning and preparation, right? And eating out. Eating out, they went from a 4.1 down to 2.8 and then 2.6. So that just, if you're being voluntold to go on a vegan diet, you're probably going to find that it's pretty hard to do when you go out to eat. And it's going to be quite a bit of a change going from eating meat and eggs and dairy and stuff like that to not eating that stuff. You going to say something?
Again, we're talking about such tiny numbers, honestly. But like healthy lifestyle baseline 3.7 up to a 4.1 back down to a 4.0. I mean, these are just tenths of a just minuscule. And then omnivores, 3.5 up to 4.0 and back down to 3.9.
Yeah.
This is so small, but I mean, people are in the vegan diet, at least they feel good about themselves.
Yeah. So,
I'm just saying.
Overall, both diets, they found, is this a healthy lifestyle? Both of them said, yeah, I find this to be a healthy lifestyle. Eating out, the vegans definitely had a harder time eating out. As far as cost goes, it, is a wash both ways.
Yes.
Preoccupation with food. So preoccupation with food means, are you thinking about food a lot? So we can see that kind of went down a little bit in the vegan group. It's not that much. And it relatively stayed the same. So for both groups, it stayed the same. And then it went down a little bit for planning and preparation, it went down. So of course it's harder to plan and prep a diet that, you really didn't want to be on. You were voluntold to go on it. You don't have a lot of knowledge and information on how to do it. So it's a little bit harder and you might find that a little bit dissatisfactory. All right. Yeah. And then going off the rest of these things, I mean, the B12 can be solved up in a vegan diet. Now, the critique that vegan diets are deficient in B12, yet you have to be more cautious about taking B12. But 40% of the American population is B12 deficient.
Yeah, that's true.
And only about 3% of the population is vegan. So B12 deficiency is a major concern across the population in general.
That's right.
And so, supplementation is the easiest way to solve that. So, going forward, if these people wanted to continue to go forward, you could just recommend them, hey, just take this B12 supplement every day. And that will solve that.
Yep.
Right. So
agreed.
We did see some bigger changes here. So insulin went down quite a bit in the vegan group. And we see that difference here is at the end of 8 weeks, 10.5 versus 13.7. Both of these, when we look at the reference ranges for fasting insulin, both of those are still, they're considered normal, but I think they're just a little bit high. So overall, they're practically the same.
Yeah.
Weight about the same. The only big thing was the LDL concentration.
Right.
In the vegan group, it's 95.5, so it's under 100. That's where we want it to be, right? In the omnivorous group, it was 116.
Yep.
Now we do have baseline results for those. Let me see if we can get back to that. All right, so baseline for the vegan group here, LDL was 110. So we have about a 15-point reduction.
Yeah.
The omnivorous group was 118. It dropped to 116.
Right.
Yeah. So it kind of stayed the same. However, these results, even though the LDL change is statistically significant and it is where we want it to be, the actual like personal variation that someone could have, these results are well within the swing, right? So if you were to take 3 or 4 blood draws a year, at one point in time, you very well could have 95.5, and another time you very well could have a 116.
True.
Being in the same person.
I agree with that.
So overall, it did go down. The LDL did go down in the vegan group. We do want to see that on a population level. We do want to see those going down. Okay. But as far as the results from this specific study, I don't know. I don't know. I would point that out and say, hey, look, there's a 15-point reduction in the point estimate here. That's good. We want to see that. And we can look at longer term data and see that vegans on average do have far, far, far lower LDL cholesterol numbers than the average population. However, like 116, I don't know that that's anything to be too concerned about, right? We would want to see that come down. And these people did start exercising. They did change from, kind of their standard diet to a healthy omnivorous diet. So I think over time, if they were to continue that omnivorous diet, they probably would see further reductions in LDL. Even though we didn't see it in 8 weeks, you probably could see some different changes.
And something again is I just want to focus here too is that in our past conversations about LDL, it's like just slight changes in your diet. I mean, 116, that would be, you would have that under 100 easily just by like a slight change in a couple of meals a week.
Yeah.
We talked about that. So that number is not, I don't think that's a trend number really, but just according to this study, I'm not alarmed. I'm not alarmed by that being 116.
Yeah.
Not
Well,
alarmed.
it's the mean for the group. So for all 44
Yeah.
participants, that's the mean number.
Yeah.
So I guess it would be 22 in the omnivorous group. That's the mean. And that's not a terrible number overall, really.
Nope.
Um,
But it's controllable. That's something that's
yeah.
just that's totally
There could still, even being on an omnivorous diet, you could they could still further work on reducing saturated fat and cholesterol within that diet
right.
and still
Right.
eat animal products and have a lowering of LDL cholesterol.
Right.
So our confidence intervals here. So we see in the vegan group, some people almost got down here to achieve 30%.
hmm
All right. And so that's something we talked about in the portfolio diet. Is if you put a lot of effort into, those recommendations from the portfolio diet, you could see up to a 30%. And so we're seeing that play out here
Right.
in this
Right.
study.
Right.
Some people achieved almost a 30% reduction in LDL cholesterol.
Right. Right.
Yep. All
Cool.
right. And so let's go back here. Let's go to contents, article information, funding source. Funding source was a big critique of this thing.
Hey, can you hang on a
Yeah.
second? I want a couple of things. I don't know if we can find it if you've seen this on the charts there, but one thing that Kathy and I went through with kind of a fine-tooth comb was and I don't know if she was looking directly at this outcome right here from the JAMA or not, but she said that she found that those who follow the plant-based diet have higher levels of good gut bacteria. The microbiome, I think it's what bifido bacterium.
One of those Latin.
Yeah, and because it leads to better metabolism, stronger immune system, better
Yep.
overall health. I don't know where she found that, but she showed it to me and I wasn't paying close attention. But I don't know if that's something that we really want to go into. And also, she talked to me about telomeres. I had to do some research on what that even was. It's interesting. I can't say that this is anything. What's the word I'm looking for? Concrete. I can't say that this is an actual, we've got to watch this. But so I didn't even know what a telomere was. But a person's biological age can be determined by the length of a telomere.
Yeah.
A telomere is a basic cap on the end of basically of a DNA strand. And one of the things that they determined when they went through the study is that all of these twins, they had the same length of telomeres or caps at the end of the DNA strands, which indicated that to start with, both twins had the same length of telomeres. So after the test was over, what they found is that the vegan or the plant-based recipients had slightly longer telomeres at the end of the study. The longer the telomere is basically a younger age, a younger biological age. And
Yeah.
I'm not talking by years or anything, but there is a significance to the length of the telomere. I'm going, I'll just tell you, my mind was blown. I had never heard of such a thing. But the meat eaters had shorter telomeres,
Hmm.
which is an indicator of older biological age. And again, it's not by years or anything like that, but there is a significance in that structure of your DNA.
Right. Yeah.
Boom. Just saying.
So those results were in the documentary. And so, going back to Mike, I think his last name is Menser.
Yeah, yeah.
So his critique on, they didn't have a lot of these, um, they didn't report a lot of these outcomes at the end. And so that's some of the stuff is they only showed that in the documentary, and it's not in this publication here, is the change in telomeres,
Yeah, yeah.
which they did find. And, like, does that translate to, how many years at the end of your life does that translate? I'm not sure that we have the
Don't even
ability to
know.
say that at this
Don't
point.
even know. Right, right. And I agree. I just wanted to bring it up that there were other
Yeah.
things in that study that, and again, Kathy was looking not at I don't think she was looking at the JAMA. So she found somewhere. So she was actually giving me numbers, and I'm going, I don't even know what that means. Can I have a bagel? I mean, I didn't know. But the point being is that there's further data out there on this study. But in relation to our conversation here, I don't think any of that was so uh, extraordinary to make a huge
Hmm.
stance. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It is interesting.
It's a trend, maybe, but
Yeah, again, how much health or how much life does that translate to? I'm not
I
sure
have
that we
no idea.
have the ability to answer that question. The gut bacteria, yeah, many people who go on a vegan diet report having better digestion.
Absolutely,
That is
absolutely.
that is a thing.
It
Uh,
is a thing, and it is a thing. Just
yeah.
I'm babbling right now, but we all know that. So eating red meats your body has a little bit more difficult time, processing that for sometimes. Some people more than others.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah, it is
I'll stop
variable
talking.
from person. It's variable from person to person. So some people do have a
Yeah,
worse time on a vegan diet. Some people have a worse time on a higher animal product. We'll just say carnivore or keto or
right, right,
something. Some
right.
people have a lot of success both directions. And that is a thing that was brought up in the documentary, is that, diet is very personal. Not everyone is going to see the same results from the same diet. And this is, that's coming from Christopher Gardner. He ran with the study called the Diet Fits, which was a healthy plant-based diet versus a healthy ketogenic diet. And they did that for a year, I think. They had like 600 participants in it or something. And, they saw basically the same thing for both diets. Some people lost weight, some people gained weight, some people had better digestion, some people had worse digestion. And when you put the graphs next to each other, they were basically identical. So it's very
Right,
personal.
right, right, right.
Funding sources here, again, like it's just like the chicken death kick. I just wish it would die. So people are
Ah,
saying that Beyond Meat funded the study. No, Beyond Meat didn't fund the study. The study was funded by the Voight Foundation. Now, they do have their own biases and their own leanings. and they're allowed to do that. Remember, the Beef Checkoff funds studies, the Dairy Council Association funds studies, the Egg Association funds studies. And if there is an issue of bias coming from funding source, we should be able to find it in the methodology.
Right.
And people just aren't saying, we're coming up with, well,
Right.
the vegan diet ate less calories. Well, the diet wasn't meant to be calorie controlled.
Right.
I've heard the vegan diet group ate less sugar. We could go back to the supplemental table, but it come out to 6 grams.
Yeah.
The difference in sugar was 6 grams. Okay. Also, I don't think people are saying understand what they're saying when they say that. So you're number one, accepting that a vegan diet can be better than an omnivorous diet at reducing added sugars. And you're also saying that added sugars in an omnivorous diet don't necessarily drive up triglycerides. So,
People will make, how do I say this? What I see is so often, even in the studies, and that's one of the reasons I'm so glad that you do such a deep dive into the numbers, and we go over that, and we also look at confidence, confidence scales. Is that, and I've even talked about some of the things right here, is that some things that are minutia, people will build an entire defense over.
very much.
Meat-based diet is better, plant-based diet is better because of this minutia. So, granted, I mean, I was very excited about the whole concept about the telomeres, but is that enough information? Is that enough to make you make a decision over a plant-based versus an animal-based, diet? No, it's not. And so we're looking at the trends, and that's what we were looking at. So in the whole discussion about the LDL and the triglycerides, it's like, we're still in the range. We're still in the range.
That's right.
And so just understand that, people. It's like, oh my gosh, the sky is falling. The sky is falling, and
Yeah.
it's not. Just make healthy, intelligent decisions. And
Yeah.
watch our podcast.
And watch the podcast. Well, I guess people who are listening now probably are watching it. Send it to your friends.
Send it to your friends. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So, the study in general, like it does lack some of those end of study outcomes, which, I think many of us would like to see. So, now Mike Mentzer's critique about the waist measurement thing. So in the documentary, they did show us some of the DEXA reports. So Mike's concern with the waist measurement was that, yes, the vegan diet group lost weight. Both diet groups actually lost a little bit of weight. The vegan diet group lost a little bit more, like 2 pounds, man. Let's not be overly concerned. But he's concerned with whether or not that weight was lost from fat or muscle. So based on the DEXA results, we did see that some of the people in the vegan group lost some muscle and not fat, right? So a higher percentage would be lost in the vegan group compared to the omnivorous group based on what they showed us in the documentary. There was probably a higher percentage of muscle loss in the vegan group. Again, meaningful amounts, I don't really think so. However, there was some people in the omnivorous group who gained visceral fat. So that's fat in and around your organs.
Yep.
Okay. So
Yep.
there are pluses and minuses to both of these diets here. Okay. Some of those people did gain some muscle in the omnivorous group and lose some fat, but they gained visceral fat. So that's something to consider. Okay.
But I got to say this. And you're probably about to say this, and I probably just jumped in on you. Is that okay? There's another thing. This is only 44 people.
Right.
So 22 sets of twins, and we don't really know anything about their personal history, their family history. So some people are genetically disposed to putting weight here, putting weight there. I mean, there's a generality, but we don't know about these people. We don't. So 2 pounds, yeah, I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Overall, I think there was health improvements in both groups. there's aspects to both diets that are beneficial and negative.
Yep.
Um, Something people really are concerned about with population level recommendations to go on a vegan diet and reducing the amount of livestock that we have is and it's a major concern for the ranchers as well, is what do these people do? You're taking away their livelihoods. And so there was the guy in there who was the chicken farmer, and he talked about, I think he inherited his farm from his dad, and his dad started out, maybe not his dad. We talked about in the 1950s or before that, the big selling thing for farmers was tobacco
Yeah.
crops. Once the tobacco industry kind of died down and that cash crop went away, they started switching over to livestock animals,
Right.
or corn or soy or whatever. And so one of the things he said is, look, farmers really don't care what it is that they're growing. If you're going to pay them to grow it, then they'll do it. And so he, having been a chicken farmer, got tired of seeing stuff. And he said, he was like, I saw too much. There's too much death. There's too much disease. There were too many cancers. He said, I don't eat, store-bought chicken. I'm not going to eat a CAFO chicken. It switched him off, and he got tired of raising chickens. And then at the end of the documentary, he started working with somebody else, and now he turned all of those barns, or he's in the process of turning all of the barns where he was raising chickens into growing mushrooms for
Yep.
plant-based meat alternatives. So the
Yeah.
concern that Dan Bongino talks about this too, when the automobile was first introduced, people were concerned for wagon makers. What are we going to
Yep.
do? What are those people going to do? And the thing is that you change with the industry. And I think farmers, I can't speak for all of them, but for sure, they probably, if there is something that the American population needs in order to live, the farmers are happy to grow whatever it is to help feed America.
Yeah. I
And
completely agree with that.
they'll switch. And I think that if we put, so there's a lot of subsidies that go into different aspects of farming. So beef just being one of them, the beef industry receives a lot of subsidies. And so if we were to take those same amount of subsidies and help farmers, so let's just, I'm saying if there was a large transition to a vegan or vegetarian diet, and the demand for beef went down, right, that would cut into the farmers' bottom line. It would probably put a lot of them out of business. But if we take those same subsidies and help them transition from beef to whatever is replacing it, right, that would help preserve their livelihood as a farmer and carry on the tradition of farming. So they don't have to do something else. They can continue to farm. They're just farming something else.
Right, but those transitions need to that can't be sudden. I know not
Well, it
too long
wouldn't be
ago.
sudden.
Yes, I mean not too long ago. I think it was under the Obamacare. I mean not Obamacare, but the Obama administration. There was this push to change. I can't remember if it was about electric cars or whatever,
Yeah.
and that we have to do this in 5 years or whatever like that. And it's like a sudden transition like that. Yeah, that's not a good thing. But it's possible. Obviously, we like with the wagon guys, transitioning to building other things, building cars and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a huge amount of subsidies for farmers who are growing, crops,
Mm-hmm.
non-beef oriented crops, but they will transition to whatever. Even here in Texas, for those of you that are looking at watching this from elsewhere, I mean, you've got a farmer. I mean, he may grow soybeans, this year or part of next year. He might be doing cotton. He might come. That's not that. That's a pretty big transition. Cotton's pretty hard on the soil, but
Mm-hmm.
so you can do beans. You could do soybeans. You could do sorghum. There's all kinds of transitions that they can do, uh, and it's not that big of a change for them or the process in growing those crops.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can transition to a different type of protein.
We could even, yeah,
fats.
we could even subsidize the rewilding of certain areas of land,
Yep.
and pay those farmers to manage, wildlife conservation and the rewilding of those farms. So we don't have to put all the farmers out of a job. I don't think
Right.
anybody's looking to do that.
No, no, not at all.
Yeah, it would be a gradual thing
Yeah.
anyway. No one can snap their fingers and overnight all of the livestock agriculture goes away.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
um, yeah, so let's see. Does the documentary or this study make a good case for going vegan? I don't think so.
I don't either by the data. However, we talked a little bit, I think, maybe it was before we started recording today's podcast, but we talked a little bit about the sensationalism of, or even you talked about like the fear mongering kind of thing. So with us, just with a small spoon of that, whether whatever their intent is, that will sway some people to at least try it. You know what I'm saying? So for example, so my wife watched some of those things, and when you see the mass production of chickens or the mass production of um, beef or pork or whatever, and you see those mass production things happening, and the conditions with the animals are in, some people will respond to that. Is it a huge reason to change to a vegan diet? Yeah, no, not by the data, not really by the documentary either, because there is some weirdness in the documentary, but it's enough to make some people think about it and go, maybe I'll try it out. I'll try it out. And some of the products that are out there are good enough that, this works.
Mhm.
This is healthy.
Yeah,
So
I think the study in and of itself, there's not enough there to
no,
that would convince anyone to go vegan. What
right.
this study does is it adds to the body of available evidence that we have to help us make population level recommendations. And I think that's another thing that a lot of people are missing is the difference between an individual based recommendation
And
and a
population based.
population level
Yeah,
based
absolutely.
recommendations.
Absolutely.
The recommendations we are getting, um, where to reduce meat, reduce saturated fat, are not individual level based recommendations. Some
Right.
people are going to be fine moving in the other direction. The whole point of many of these things is to move as much of the population who are in an unhealthy category to move everyone over at the same time. So the people who are already eating red meat and saturated fat and cholesterol and cheat and everything, and they're perfectly fine, perfectly healthy, moving them, right, making the recommendations to reduce all of that only moves them into a healthier
Yes.
position. Some
Yes.
people will go the
Yes.
other way, but that's
Yes.
not what the recommendations are about. And so there's
Yes.
a huge confusion, particularly I see it in physicians and then in coaches like myself. There's a confusion on individual level recommendations versus population level recommendations.
Right. 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 Right.
Yeah. So the
Good
study
stuff.
study is I don't think it's convincing enough to go on to a vegan diet. The documentary does highlight some of the other impacts that livestock agriculture has on people's lives. So the pig farms being, spraying feces and urine all over the crops. That stuff gets in the air and it affects the people around them. And they won that lawsuit
Yeah. Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
with the pig farms. Is that going to
Yeah.
change anything?
Mm,
Not really. You see the conditions that the chickens are in. One of the big things that swayed my mind and changed me is when I saw the number. So 16 million animals, not including fish, are killed every year, and they don't even make it to your plate. So 16 million animals are grown in those conditions. They're killed at an early age unnecessarily. They just end up in the trash can. And that's kind of unfortunate, So
That's a greedy and careless society. That's all I can say.
Yeah. And a lot of it is based on poor laws, because if meat passes a certain point in the grocery store, it's not allowed to be donated. You can't send it to the zoo to feed the lions, or it has to go in the trash can, and those are just part of laws. So
Yeah,
a lot of it is unnecessary.
I agree with that. But by the same token, even before they get to the grocery store, there's a large amount of unsatisfactory meat, whether it's chicken, pork, or beef. Not because it's tainted or not because it's unedible, but maybe because it just didn't meet the standard.
Yeah. Some of that happens. All right.
Yeah.
So for everybody out there watching the documentary or seeing stuff online, hopefully we've provided a more reasonable critique of this study. And when you're seeing some of these arguments online, you're now armed with some information that can help you make better decisions. So
yes,
should you choose to do a vegan or an omnivorous diet going into the future, please make both of them healthy. If you have questions about anything, reach out to me, and I can answer all of your questions. I am not opposed to you finding happiness and health eating meat.
However, you can throw some plant-based stuff in there 2 or 3 times a week. And
for sure. Well, I think the recommendations, the recommendations make that clear. The evidence makes that clear. It doesn't mean that you can't be healthy eating animal products. That's
right. That's right.
We may I definitely want to do an episode in the future as to how much red meat, right? Because the focus is on red meat. We're going to talk about how much red meat can I get away with eating and being healthy. Is chicken or white meat, poultry better than red meat? So I want to answer some of those questions in the future.
Oh, this would be great. That's a great podcast right there.
Yeah. Fish seems to be overall very, very healthy. So
I love fish. Yeah.
Please eat fish at least twice a week. Make it fatty fish.
Yep.
All right. Good deal. Okay. Well, hopefully somebody out there got something. Dwayne, any mind blows today?
Yeah, actually, several things. Things that I thought might have been important turn out not to be that important. Just based on the studies and based on the confidence levels. They're, those things kind of, some of that stuff kind of caught me off guard. I thought that they were going to be more important than they were, and it's good to know that. And it's interesting also how people will build an entire argument over a marker that's not that significant. Yep. So good stuff. Mind blown. Boom.
All right. Very good. Well, everyone, Happy New Year. I wish everyone prosper and success in your resolutions, and hope everyone gets on a better track to a healthy and vibrant, lifeful 2024.
Absolutely.
All right. Lamby and Dwayne out.
See you later.